Hey, welcome back to Progressions, Success in the Music Industry. Thanks for joining us for episode 9. Today's episode is a fun one. I enjoyed getting to know our guest today, and there's something I took away from our conversation that I think would make a great opening. Going against the grain, thinking outside the box, going off the beaten path, being an outlier. There are plenty of phrases to describe it, so just pick your favorite. Our guest this week has made, in my opinion, several non-conventional choices, and they have paid off for him and jump-started his career. We'll cover those in the interview, but I wanted to drive home the idea that the best move for your career might not be the most obvious one or the one that is most taken by your peers. Sure, the obvious path is the easier path to take. This is because the work has been done for you. Somebody else has paved the way and left a trail for you to follow. And if you haven't figured out from listening to this show yet, the best thing you can be doing for your career is probably the most challenging task and likely the task you least want to be doing, then you need to pause and jump back to episode 1. Because in general, you can assume that the path of least resistance will not be the fast track to success. So here's the problem with doing the obvious. Your obvious next move is also someone else's obvious next move. You are on the packed, slow-moving, rush-hour freeway of people following in the footsteps of somebody else's success. Now, it's true that pretty much everybody on that freeway will reach their destination eventually. They might make it home for dinner, or they might miss it. They might try to take a shortcut and get stuck trying to cross a major road at an intersection without a light. The worst, right? Anybody in LA who's used Google Maps has felt that pain. But anyway, the point is, you'll probably get there, but at a snail's pace and no sooner than everyone around you. You'll be lost in the noise. If you're doing what everybody else is doing, there is nothing that makes you stand out and nothing that grabs people. So why do people do this? Well, people have a habit of doing what's worked in the past because it's safe and it's comforting. You feel like you're making the right choice because it worked for someone else. And when you look around to your peers, it seems to be working for them as well. And, like I said, it is working, but it's not setting you apart. It's not 10xing your progress. If you want to launch yourself forward, you need to set yourself apart, and the only way to do that is to be original, to be unique, to find a way to chase your goals down in a way that connects with your core values and your passions. If you can do that, then you can break ahead of the pack. And once you start breaking ahead of the pack, here's how your mind is going to try to stop you. It's going to tell you that none of your peers are doing what you're doing. It must be wrong. We must get back to the group. That's your age-old survival instinct trying to keep you safe by sticking close to the rest of the village. Ignore that and don't let your mind hold you back from your full potential. This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, the Complete Producer Network. The Complete Producer Network is a social network created by former Progressions guest and 6-time Grammy-nominated producer and mixer Damian Taylor. I've been hanging out on there since it launched, and I can't say enough about the people I've met. In a world where social media is getting a bad rap for negativity, this is an outlier and an absolute beacon of hope for the internet. If you're looking for a community of people that want to learn from and encourage each other, or you want to find new collaborators, or maybe you just want to discover new music, this is the place for you. In addition to conversations on various topics, there are numerous events, workshops, and courses planned for the future as well. And I have to say, I've found the people and the conversations on the network to be super inspiring and right in line with the ideas of this show. So I'm also happy to say that there's a special room there for Progressions listeners to have open discussions about episodes. The Complete Producer Network welcomes all musicians, producers, artists, engineers, and any other form of music creative to join. So jump over to completeproducer.net and get in on the conversation. Our guest this week is Grammy-nominated mixer Jesse Ray Ernster. Jesse has managed to fast-track his way to the charts since arriving in Los Angeles, starting with engineering duties on Kanye West's album Jesus is King, and most recently for mixing the entirety of Burna Boy's album Twice as Tall. In addition to a busy mix schedule, Jesse also contributes to Music Tech Magazine and worked with Audio Test Kitchen on their mission to bring microphone comparisons to the internet. I'm excited to get to chat with somebody with such an extensive resume so early in their career. So let's get into it. Welcome to the show, Jesse Ray Ernster.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks for being here. How are you doing today?
I am good. There's been a good amount of mixing this morning and a fair amount of cleaning the house too. There's been some renovation happening and we've got like a mountain of dust
Oh man.
everywhere. and
Are you
and I thought I had it all cleaned up and I pulled back my equipment rack to plug in this preamp to be able to do this podcast with you, and I realized that there's just dust all over the cables everywhere. So I just pushed it back against the wall, and I think I'm going to leave it there and not touch it. We'll forget we saw that.
That's right. There's always dust behind the racks. Are you a morning person? You said you've already done some mixing. It's only like noon for us. Are you a big morning guy?
Definitely. I have a kid, so that kind of that helps. But even before I had a baby, we began waking up. My wife and I would wake up around 5 or 6 every day for the last several years, and that's actually been a big proponent of kind of being able to get up and get stuff done and scheduling a lot of meetings, and kind of led to where I'm at now, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah,
later
that's
in the podcast.
you've got me beat. I'm getting up at like 5:36. There's something about that morning. I'm just like I'm on fire in the morning, and then I would just check out at like 4 o'clock.
Yeah, dude, exactly. It's amazing to just get in, get it all done, and like sometimes I like to wrap by like 2 o'clock and just have the afternoon, go out, exercise, do the thing, hang out with my daughter, and then do some cooking, and then you can hang out and maybe do some more work later at night. But yeah, it's the mornings, man. That's the fuel time.
Do you feel like you have to fight? Most musicians are night people. Do you end up in these situations where some guy wakes up at 4 p.m. and he wants a mix recall at 7?
Yeah, I think in the mixing realm, like as you probably know, it's pretty understanding, and I think it's kind of the expectation that when someone sends notes, it's usually going to be within 48 hours. We'll be able to squeeze something in to get it back to them. So I try to do things within 24 hours. But in recent history, Burna Boy is obviously like a kind of in the, I guess, more of the hip hop style session realm where they do like to work really late. Even though he's not a hip hop artist, he's technically a Afrobeats artist. But so yeah, he'll go super late, but because he's in Nigerian time zone, it actually works out pretty perfectly here. So they're 8 hours ahead. So his super late night is kind of like my afternoon,
Oh, it's amazing. It's perfect. That's perfect.
Not bad.
So that kind of segues me to where I wanted to start. So in the first episode of the show, which of course no one has heard yet because it hasn't officially launched, it will in a couple weeks, I talk about the difference between expecting to wake up one day and get a number one hit, and the difference of waking up one day and having a global number one smash hit, which are obviously two very different things. So I love that you're here because you woke up a couple weeks ago with a global number one hit in Twice as Tall from Burna Boy. So let's break that down. How'd you get on that road to end up there?
Yeah, it goes way back from before that happening. Let's see. I picked up the drum set when I was 6 years old. Not literally, of course.
Was that the first instrument? Drums?
That was the first instrument. Yeah, my dad surprised me with the drum set, and it was up in the attic, and I was exploring and snooping around the house, and it was about a month before Christmas. I was not supposed to find that drum set. So I started playing it, and he came up, and he was mad and delighted all at the same time, and that's where that began. So then from there, yeah, many years of playing in bands, and both my parents are musicians, and my dad was a recording engineer, producer, early adopter of Pro Tools, which was called Sound Tools at the time in the 90s. Oh boy, those were weird times. Just massive machines to run this just horrible software with the worst converters ever. Anyway, yeah, I came up around that environment, around a lot of musicians, and, played in bands and MD'd some groups and led some groups, and ultimately decided I loved being in the studio more, and started recording all my friends' bands, recording a cappella groups, recording country bands. And in Minnesota, where I grew up after moving here from Canada, where I was born in Winnipeg, the main deal in Minnesota was like country bands. And like most of the working musicians were in like country cover groups, and that was sort of the deal.
Right.
We called it like Nashville of the Midwest. It was a really big country scene. So that's where I kind of got my chops, learning how to mic up kits in my basement studio, and learning where to put them, and learning how to engineer and move things around to manipulate the sound and get it going. And eventually I learned that I just really, really love mixing. and I wasn't super into sitting through tracking sessions anymore. And producing was sort of frustrating for me because you could produce a song and get to the very end of it, and then the artist would decide that they really wanted to go a different direction, and you have to completely start over. And which, later I would find out that mixing can be a very similar scenario. So from there, my wife and I decided to move out to LA in 2017 because the scene, we felt like we kind of had hit the limits of what Minnesota had to offer as far as label support and, just A&R access and just reach to artists. And, it's happening here. It's here or it's in Nashville, a little bit in New York. I can't really speak to that. I don't know about what's happening in the New York scene now. But yeah, we moved out here. Oh, God, there's so much that goes into that. Am I going down to like too many paths right now? Do you have more of an exact you'd like me to nail down on first?
You're fine. If you were doing kind of country bands, why LA instead of Nashville?
I love LA. I'm fascinated with this place and with this. I'm not a country guy. I'm a rock and roll guy, and I'm into the pop music scene as well. And this is just, I was fantasizing about this place forever. Since I was a little kid, and I was really into skateboarding and the skateboarding scene, and that was all Southern California, and growing up and seeing like. David Lynch, Mulholland Drive, and just being obsessed with the Hollywood culture and the history and the golden age of Hollywood in the 60s, and then learning about this is where they made all the records, and through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the Sunset Strip era of the hair metal bands, and just all this, just the wacky things throughout the ages. I love it here, and I've always felt called to come here, and I had a few connections.
That always
nothing
helps.
that was. Yeah, nothing that was substantial. It was more just like, here's some friends that introduce you to some friends. I introduce you to some friends. And one of the important friendships I made early on was with my buddy Phil Simmons, who is a wonderful producer and extremely talented writer, multi-instrumentalist guy. Insane. Just super, super crazy good. And we have become really, really good friends. And he kind of connected me with a lot of these other cats and musicians and projects. And he introduced me to somebody who introduced me to somebody who, ended up getting me through the door at Nightbird, where I was kind of subbing in, doing engineering sessions with this artist, Tyga. And that led to meeting Kanye West when he came in one night. And that's kind of a whole story, too, of I left the room and just approached Kanye. I just walked up to him. I knew I could maybe get fired from the session or punched in the face or what. The risk was there, but I said, hey, man, I'll regret it forever if I didn't ask, if I could come work with you. I really admire what you're doing. I'd love to be a part of the team. And he said, okay. And they, flew me out to Chicago, and we worked there for a while, engineering on what would become Jesus is King. At the time, it was an album called Yandi that we were working on finishing. And I worked on that team for a bit. We went to Uganda. We traveled through Africa. Not traveled through Africa, but we traveled through the Chobe Safari Resort in Uganda, and we recorded there and made music there and saw wild animals. And it was just the most amazing experience of my life.
That is nuts.
And it was unbelievable. And that's one of those things where you wake up, you're on a trip like that, and you wake up and you're like, what the heck? How did we get here? So then that team went home, and here I am back in LA and wondering, well, what the heck do I do now? How can I leverage that opportunity? And how can I start bragging about this to hopefully get some other work? And so I met with some different managers, and even though the album wasn't out yet, we had this kind of goal in mind that we would leverage me as an engineer with a credit with Kanye West. And I ran into a few guys, Matthew and Kirk, with Bad Habit, and that's who I ended up going with. They're my family now.
Amazing.
And so we and that was a specific pivot point, and this could probably be a whole nother subtopic of when I decided to pivot solely into mixing. And that was at this point in time, and I talked extensively about it with my wife, and we just decided, hey, we might take a hit with income, just letting all the tracking sessions go and engineering and producing and all auto-tune work and drum editing for these other producers and all the stuff I was doing to hustle and grind and scrape together money to pay the bills. We just decided, hey, we want to get known for doing one thing and one thing really, really well. and that's mixing. Even though I don't feel like I mix really, really well yet. As you know, we're like always working on getting awesome at it.
Every day learning something new.
Yeah. So going with Bad Habit and deciding that, like, all right, we're going to push the mixing, and it might be slow for a few years. Whatever, let's get it. So that kind of went from there. And to get back to your initial question, here we go. Here's the moment. They also manage Burna Boy as well as a variety of other artists that are on their roster because they have a joint venture label through Atlantic. And Bad Habit Atlantic. So I did a spec mix for Burna's first EP, not first EP, but the first EP we did called Steel and Copper. And then, yeah, it was good. So we mixed that. And then I mixed the African Giant album last year that got nominated for the Grammy and recently just went silver in the UK. Yeah.
Nice.
Got to get that plaque. And and then the Twice as Tall that went #1 on the Billboard World Charts this past summer. So that's a long story. Not short, long story long, to how we got there.
Well, that's cool. I took notes. So
cool.
I'm going to go way back to the beginning.
Let's go
here.
way back.
Way back. So you said that your dad was an engineer producer. Was he down in the basement showing you how to like mic the drums the way that somebody else's dad might be throwing baseballs in the backyard with him?
Totally. Well, he's so particular, man. He's so set in his ways.
Sounds like an engineer.
He's like an engineer and like a kind of old crabby engineer. So like, yeah, he had his drum kit always mic'd up the way he wanted it. And like when bands would come over to track, he's the guy that's like, you're going to use the house kit. It's dialed in. I have it set. Like whatever tones we need to get, bring in your different snare. But like these shells are going to be what we use. So I would kind of make suggestions like, I read on Gear Sluts that if we use the modified 57 on the snare, we'll have less distortion. And and he would just say stuff like, yeah, we're not going to do that. That's the wrong way to do it. Try this,
This is how we mic a drum kit in this house.
Exactly. But yeah, I definitely got the initial Pro Tools lessons from him and the initial endless guitar tone lessons from him. Like he's a master guitar player, and we played in bands together too.
That's awesome.
He's kind of a tone god that nobody knows about, and so that's like he's the guy that could take like a pod, an old like just these things that we as engineers just love to rip on, and he would just dial in these insane tones on a pod, So it became his joke. He's like, I'm going to go around. I'm going to play gigs all over town with a pod. I'm going to beat everybody using this piece of crap. And I'm going to make it rock. And he did, man. It's like you would never know. And I would come home with my Axe effects, I'd get all the fanciest new gear whenever it would come out. And I would try to out dial him. So we'd have these dialing competitions. And of course, he wouldn't change anything. He would just pull up his one setting that he loved. And it would always beat the Axe effects. Or I'm like, okay, well, I'll buy the best tube amp ever. I'll get the 5150 or the Matchless, and we'll bring it in, and his pod tones would beat my, like, incredible tube amp rigs. Of course, it was because his fingers were dialing and his fingers were playing, and that's what I would go on to learn. It was his ears and his mind driving those decisions with his experience. Yeah, he's a master, but we still disagree. For any of your listeners, you can check out if you Google Jesse Ray and his dad mixing or whatever you want to search for. But there's a YouTube video of us. We went into Big Bad Sound here in LA last year, which shout out to those guys, Jack and Zach. Love those guys, man. I love that studio. We did a mix together, my dad and I, on the API Legacy console. So we did it old school style, and you could see him pulling up the faders one at a time and reaching for knobs. And when he wanted to hear something, he just reached for the EQ, and he made those changes right then and there. And it was amazing. I lost track of the question, but there's that answer.
It was there. That's great. I haven't actually been over to Big Bad yet. I almost did something over there. You like that spot?
Absolutely.
For
it's
all
the
the listeners that are not in Los Angeles, super important information. But so I want to go back to you going up to Kanye, because obviously that's a huge moment for you. Did you come out and work in a big studio? Did you have that mentality that was like beaten into you where like you stand in the corner and you keep your mouth shut?
Yep. Yeah. So in Minnesota, in the first, 7 or 8 years of making records, I did not come up in the studio, as I kind of previously touched on. I was self-taught and made music at home in the home studio, and occasionally would go out and, work and engineer in bigger rooms to get drums. Maybe we needed like a roomy sound, and then I would bring the basics back to my place and finish it there. But out here, I needed to try everything. So we got to town, and I had, close to no connections, and I had no momentum whatsoever. So it was the first week, and I was sending out, 100 emails a day and trying to connect with any producer, engineer, studio owner, whoever I could to get coffee and try to get some momentum going. And nothing was sticking, right? So I did seek out all of these studios, and I sent resumes out, and nothing happened. And then I just needed to get creative. So I connected with my wife on, brainstorming, like, what can we do here? She's a recruiter at Google, so she has this way of thinking about things, and she remembers how certain people got her attention throughout the years when she would be interviewing. And so we came up with this idea to buy just 10 dozen boxes of donuts, really obnoxious, brightly colored pink donuts, and slap the resumes on there. Really, full color resumes, obnoxious, flashy. Just make it as memorable and wacky as possible.
Just absolutely
and I loaded
ridiculous.
my car. Yeah, as ridiculous as possible, and just to not be afraid of that. So I went to every studio in the valley, and ring the buzzer, knocked on the door, went in, and brought these donuts in, and said, "Hey, you picking up interns right now? I would love to work here." And I got laughed out the door pretty much the whole way. It was a couple days of this. And then the very last stop was NRG in North Hollywood, and they were into it. The manager there was like, "This is funny. Okay, this is cool. Yeah, we do need somebody, actually. So let's have you start next week." And so I came in there, and I kind of got the ropes of the studio world, which was dun dun dun, much different than I had anticipated. I got my butt kicked, man. I don't want to say I walked in like a hot shot thinking I knew everything, because that's kind of the cliche that you hear about. But, I felt like I had a lot to learn, but I felt like I was also fairly established. But there really is a lot of difference between LA session flow and kind of the etiquette of being in a session here versus, being in a home studio with my buddies back home.
Oh, yeah.
And those are things I had to learn. And a lot of it was speed-based and engineering-based, and just a lot of these unsaid things and kind of the dynamic of how a session goes that I needed to learn. And the staff there, they were really tough on me, and they were really, I'm thankful that they were, They knew the rooms and they knew the gear, and I was not the fastest on Pro Tools really yet. I thought I was, but turns out there are always more shortcuts than any of us know about.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm thankful for that. I always get extremely excited when I learn a new shortcut. But yeah, so I got hired pretty fast there. I think it was 3 weeks, and I was running coffee and being there till 8 a.m. sometimes, and running and picking up backwoods for the rap clients. And yeah, it was humbling, man, because those were tough times. And my car still smells like McDonald's and Five Guys, and that'll never go away. There's been irreparable damage done.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I spilled when I was a runner, just emptied out a whole catering size thing of penne pasta all over my seat.
Oh no!
It was
Where
awful.
were you running?
I was working at Capitol Studios. That's where I started.
Oh, dude. See, I brought the donuts to Capitol, and that's where that was my first stop.
What year?
That's where I wanted to go.
When is this?
This was 2017. This would have been in August, so almost 3 years ago.
I think I was just gone. Otherwise, I probably would have eaten some donuts.
What was it like over there, man? Did I miss out?
It was great. It was amazing. I mean, I worked there. I came to LA in 2006, and I worked there twice. Once as a runner, kind of working my way to assistant, and then I left to do something else, and then I went back as an engineer. But just a really amazing,
Awesome.
So much history.
How were you able to go back as an engineer?
That was kind of a luck. That was a lucky moment. I basically it's a really great place to work, so people work there for a long time. So there is a ceiling on when you're gonna move on, right? So I got an opportunity to go work for a producer. We were doing a bunch of Disney music, and so I did that for about 2.5 years, where I was just this songwriter, producer's engineer, and mixer. And then I started to feel, I don't know if you've ever felt like this, that I was doing a lot of work. I was working every day, but I was only working for one person. And so it got to the point where I was like, this is the only person I know. This is the only person I'm working for. I might need to do something else. And we were having something mastered at Capitol that week, and I started talking to one of my old managers, and they were talking about these rooms that they were building for pop songwriting. They built 2 extra rooms. I can't remember what year this was. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. I've been thinking about, moving on, and I've been doing nothing but pop writing sessions for 3 years. And he was like, well, if you want a job, then I've got a room that'll be built in a couple weeks, and you can come help finish building it. And so that's how I ended up going back there, kind of skipping the assistant step, which I both regret and don't regret. There's so much to learn in those assistant situations. But yeah, so that's the short, I guess it was kind of long version.
No, that's great, man. I mean, those are such beautiful rooms over there, right?
Oh, they are, yeah.
So what was the setup like in your space? Not to get too heavy with gear. I know that's not the point of this cast, but we got to go there a little bit, right?
Yeah, totally. In the space that I work out of now?
I want to hear that too, but in that Capitol room in particular.
They were Neve Genesis consoles, and pretty basic pop vocal chain, Neve tube tech compressor,
which I don't get, by the way.
And so that was kind of.
Are you a CL1B guy?
Not really. I'll use it, but I like the 1176 more.
Yeah, me too, man. It's mid forward, just gets that vocal up there.
Yeah. So the setups they were pretty basic, mostly dialed, more creative plugins, dialed in like, producers, songwriters coming in, demoing out ideas. They were supposed to be just for one specific publishing company for a while. So that's kind of where these rooms came from, was a joint venture that changed as things went along. But they still have those rooms today. They've changed them a lot, and now they call them Studio D. They've kind of totally upgraded that area. So it's really, really great. So
nice.
But yeah,
Gotcha,
I mean,
man.
the coming from the similar space of working in a studio like you did, the idea of me walking up to somebody like Kanye West and saying, hey, I want to come work for you, feels so wrong to me. Because, I should rephrase that. Doesn't feel wrong to me. It feels like I wasn't supposed to do it, because that's not the way that the LA studio scene was. So like, I think taking that step obviously was huge for you, because it set you off on this path that you're on now. But I think a lot of people are afraid to make those big moves. I mean, I've quit a salary engineering job twice, and as I walked out the door, thought that's probably the worst decision I'll ever make. But both times it was totally worth it. But it's frightening to do these things.
Absolutely, man. And I often think back, I often wonder if that's even a good story to share with beginners, because I don't want, I don't want somebody to get the impression that it's, that the right thing to do is to step up and be bold in the middle of a session. Because, it's important to preface that as I was rushing through that story to kind of get it all in there, it was towards the end of the night. We had already done all the tracking for several hours, and I think we were at that kind of celebration point of the night where they kind of they press play and do a lot of playback and kind of jam and celebrate the work that was done. And the evening was winding down. I think they were packing up and getting ready to leave. So I thought, well, this is probably a good time. And I didn't do it in the room, So left the studio and left in the hallway at least, so I'm not in there in front of the artist. But, again, it's like you just got to weigh the risk, right? There's a time and a place. And I was in there subbing in, and I didn't know if I would ever get in and work that room again, or probably never see Kanye again, which is likely. So, yeah, you got to take those shots, Like, I just wonder what my life would look like now if I hadn't.
Oh, yeah.
Can't regret. No regrets, baby.
No,
Woo!
you got to go for it. You got to stand by the choices that you make. You're going to make the best choices that you can with the information you have. And that goes, not just in music, just in life. And you just got to stand by it. And if it was the wrong choice, in your case it was not, you just have to, accept that you made a mistake and move on and sort out how to repair it.
Totally. So, I mean, I've made some wrong choices too. We could talk about those. Like I got yelled at in my face by R. Kelly when I worked at NRG. That was humiliating and educational, and his breath smelled bad, and I just it was all of it. It was a whole thing. And yeah, there are times to, speak up, and there are times not to.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of an impulsive guy. I'm pretty hyperactive. I was severely diagnosed with ADHD as a kid. I was the kid in the classroom just drumming on the desks and bouncing off the walls and speaking up and interrupting and just distracting everybody and making teachers' lives a living hell. And so I think some of that energy now I'm able to control and bring it into the music and bring it into the space and make my engagement with artists exciting and get them fired up. But so, sometimes it's definitely bit me in the ass. So I think there's a time and a place, right?
It's great. That's good. So when you came out to LA, it sounds like you were just a networking machine, just cold calling people. Like you have no fear of that stuff. You're just diving in.
Yeah. I think that's always been a strength of mine. Like my family moved a lot when I was a kid, so I got a lot of practice starting fresh at new schools and having to make friends. And then again, I was like hyperactive and very outgoing, so that kind of worked for me. And getting out here, I needed to do that, obviously, because I'm deeply afraid of not amounting to what I want to and deeply afraid of not achieving my goals and of being a failure, right? Plus, I don't want to say it's a young man's game, young man or woman's game, but there is definitely something to be said for getting established when you have youth on your side. And I just felt that if we weren't able to make some things happen here pretty quick within a few years, my wife and I would probably, look to move elsewhere and pursue something else. And I would continue making records, and I would be, extremely happy to be making music at any stage, at any level, anywhere. But, I was California dreaming. I needed it to happen here. Like I need Grammys and plaques and success, and I want to work with the biggest artists. I want to work on music on the biggest level that I possibly can, and I want those songs to reach the largest audience they possibly can. I want as many people as possible to hear that music and to be affected and to get goosebumps and to be inspired and whatever that might be. I want to be a part of that, and I admit all of that freely and shamelessly. I'm competitive. I want the trophies, So I knew if you don't put the work in and you don't go for it, how the hell is it going to happen, right?
Yeah, you have to know what you want, and just being able to vocalize that the way that you did, like you obviously believe that. You didn't write that down. We have video. He did not read that off a piece of paper. That came out of him. Yeah, you have to be passionate like that if you have any chance, because let's be honest, it's extremely difficult. And there are far more downs than there are ups, but the ups are so exhilarating. They'll drive you forward to your next up. The whole music business is like that, or the entertainment business. Yeah, I mean, having that in your mind is powerful. You're on a goal, you're on a path, you put yourself there. You've mastered that. You've deeply ingrained in you. So it's great.
Thanks, man.
Do you have any tips for anybody listening that might want to make that transition from engineering to mixing? And some of our listeners might not know, this is something that I didn't even know until I really got into it, is that you can get labeled as an engineer, especially in the pop world. Labeled as an engineer, but you're not considered a mixer. I've been in rooms where people are like, oh, you mix too? And I'm like, yeah, I've been mixing all day while we've been working on this song. I also mix. But people have it separated in their mind as two different things.
Yeah.
Even though as an engineer, you're like, yes, I do that. I do both of these things. Do you have any advice for people that are trying to make that shift?
That is a really difficult question to answer. Because I don't think I went about the shift in a conventional way.
It's tough.
Man, I don't even know how to answer. I don't know how to answer it. Damn it.
I know. Well,
is there
I'm actively right now not taking engineering work unless it's a record I really want to work on. I still have clients I love that I work with in a heartbeat, and there's still records that I would love to make. And if somebody called and they were on that list, I would do it. But I think for me, where I am in my life right now, mixing is what I want to do. And I feel like I need to focus on doing that. And the only way to do that is to do that, I guess, to sum it up in a sentence that makes no sense.
No, that made perfect sense.
I mean, you made a
do you
similar
think that-
choice at some point. Will you do an engineering session now? If Kanye called to do the next record, would you go?
Yeah, I would definitely do it if it was like somebody A-list, or if it's like, one of my best friends.
Yes.
Of course. That's a no-brainer. But yeah, I mean, similar thing. For where I'm at, I definitely am sticking to the mixing, and that's what I want to get known for. But man, it is really challenging because there are certain A&Rs who are able to push, somebody for a job. Like there have been a few times where I've gotten a mixing gig because somebody said the words, "Oh, he worked with Kanye," or "He worked on Kanye's stuff," and I never want to be the guy that like claims that I've mixed that stuff, because I definitely didn't. And the guys that do his material are fantastic, and I can't discredit them. But there are ways to leverage an engineering credit into getting mix work or production work, and that
True.
I think that there are scenarios where that happens. I guess my only advice that I'm really confident about is that I would just advise anybody looking to like make a serious pivot where they're going to experience income loss. It would be to have a lot of money saved so you can, securely sit on that. Have money saved, and also like secure a brand. Like, and this is something I'm not executing enough on, but like having a brand, or having like a hashtag that you just use, or like, mixed by, everybody's doing mixed by. So that seems
Right.
like it's really cliche and overused now, but having something like, I had this joke, for a while. It would be like, "I'm the mix Jesus," or "I'm the mix God." And it's just like incredibly provocative and pushy, but it just proves a point. It's like, man, who mixed that? The God of mixing mixed that. If it was something so intense like that, or if your name was the Clark Kent of mix, and like your brand was that you had a side part and like the glasses and a suit on, and like on your front page, and you put some plaques behind you or whatever it is, like that's a funny brand. It's memorable. Like, who mixed it? Superman did, dude.
Superman.
I'm the only Superman level mixer. Like, I don't know what that's gonna be, and I don't know. Like, my thing is just like Jesse Ray, mixed by Jesse Ray. It's kind of boring, but I think that now more than ever, for anybody on the come up, is like brand recognition and brand reinforcement, and just like having something extremely solid and easy to digest for people to just be able to latch onto your name and know what the heck you do, know what you're about, and be able to talk about it easily.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Right now, some kid somewhere is like getting the Instagram for Superman of mixing, or Superwoman of mixing.
Dude, I will be
You're gonna have
very
to compete
proud
with
and
that
happy
now.
to see that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Branding is not, it is not a strong point, I think, for most musicians, particularly behind the scenes people. I'm the quiet, shy guy, and somehow I've ended up starting a podcast, but I am not that person. I'm not that put myself out on the internet branding type human. And I look around and I see that working for a lot of people. And I think that that's something that people in this industry need to accept, is that the way the world is now, you need to be out there, putting yourself out there. You have to know what it is you believe in, and you need to make that obvious to people. If you believe that you're a great mastering engineer, or you believe that you're like an excellent top liner, and you have a specialty in pop, indie pop, or whatever it is, like, you need to make those things obvious, because there's so many people making music. The pile of, people out there is massive. The only way to stick out is to do something, obviously.
Yep. Have obvious branding, and hopefully eventually have some credible records attached to you.
Yes.
By branding, I don't mean to run sponsored ads all over Facebook and Instagram, because I think that there's, at least in the mixing world, I have found that artists don't like to be, begged to work with, right? And that wasn't worded very strongly, but they don't like to be told that, hey, you should let me mix your stuff, or, once in a while they will, but like generally it's a word of mouth thing, right?
It is.
And letting this organic word of mouth develop, and this organic reputation of just getting known to be a reliable, deliverer of the goods. Can you deliver the goods? Will you do it on time? Will you be easy to work with? Will you, or is the label going to have to hound you for the stems and the finals? And
Yeah.
or And there's also the weird thing, but like some people are weird about payment. Are you the weirdo that needs like 100% of the payment like up front before you even like talk about the song? Like, and then, to each his own. And with some clients, like, yeah, if there's a red flag kind of client thing, like you got to do that. But, I think just being easygoing about the whole process and being laid back and not seeming like you're super desperate to get the money, because there's definitely been like points in my career where a gig will come in at the right time and it's like, ooh, I really needed that. But like you can't rush after the check, and you definitely can't be like foaming at the mouth to the client. Like they get really uncomfortable. The art has to be the priority. You got to be like really, really after the music, and you got to be just on a mission to make the artist so happy and so satisfied with the result.
Oh yeah.
And that's, you got to put your ego aside, and you got to put what you want aside and just completely serve the client. Because, I mean, it's not about us and our ego as engineers. Like, yeah, we're great and we know things. Yeah, cool. But it's about executing the artist's vision and bringing that to life, man. It's not about us. So
it is 100% about getting somebody else's vision out. And it doesn't matter what aspect of, engineering, mixing, mastering, whatever it is, it's a service industry. You're providing a service, you're mixing someone's song, and you're making it sound the way that they want it to sound. Sure, you're going to do things that are creative and you're going to put your artistic vision into it, but in the end, it's their ultimate thing. So you definitely have to have that mentality at all times that you're there to serve. And that goes back to when you and I started in, studios as a runner. Everything was clean. The water was in the same place. The pencils were sharpened. And it's that attention to detail that you just have to carry along with you and remember that those are the things that are going to win your clients' trust over, and that's why they're going to come back, because you did a good job. They trust that they can recommend you. And like you said, the word of mouth thing is huge in this business. If you know a lot of people and you've done great work for a lot of people, you're going to get a lot more work. That's really just what it comes down to.
Absolutely. Keep your pencils sharpened.
That's
right. That could be anything, all the way down to the way that your files are organized. I mean, I think most of us now have like running Dropbox folders with artists that we kind of frequent, And, they're digging around that, or the A&R digs around that Dropbox folder, and like, how does it look? How does it look in there? Is it tidy? Are things organized? Yeah. And your STEM delivery, like working with MDs, like a lot of these, we have to deliver stems when we finish a project, and usually it's not because they're going to do like some sort of remix at the label, because I don't know, at least in my experience, that's like never happened. But the way it gets used is MDs put these stems together for the live show, and those guys, like, that really, I don't know if that impact that it makes with them runs all the way down and like leads to more work. I don't know. But overall, in that artist's world, that artist is going to have a better time if they show up to rehearsal before tour starts and their MD is chill, he's good, he's feeling good, he's prepped because he was able to like put together his sessions to get the backing tracks ready. If they were able to get everything like solid, like just be a part of like making it a better experience for the whole team. Because like when I mix a record now, I am now thinking of it much less like I'm this outside guy, and I try to get in like I'm part of your team now. And I'm like, it's maybe a little sneaky, but I dig right in on, when they invite me to do a single or an album, I'll say like, hey, I'm happy to be on the team. Let's do this. And I say those words like, I'm on the team. We're on the same team. And I try to always express that. Like, I am with you. Like, I am here to see your vision get realized and push it through to the finish line. I'm here for you. I will virtually hug you with musical files at the end of this. Then it gets weird. Jesse, you're getting weird on us, dude. What's going on?
Oh, man.
Yeah. We got to be there for the artist, man.
That's right. Virtual hugs and properly named files. Very important. I wanted to tack a little bit. It looks like I follow you on Instagram. You've been posting not a lot of pictures, but a fair number of you at some other location other than your house or your studio mixing. Are you like really into the idea of like being able to work wherever, to be able to escape and still mix a record? I'm just totally plucking this out of the blue here because it looked like a theme. Yeah,
well, it's definitely been a theme this summer. I mentioned earlier that our house is under renovation right now. So at that point in time, which when I was mixing twice as tall for Burna. Like it was like a demolition zone here. So we literally could not live here. So we moved up into Laurel Canyon to an Airbnb for about a month and lived there. And I was mixing off of AirPods on my laptop, and the laptop was doing remote desktop controlling the studio computer. And yeah, I was mixing up in the hills of Laurel Canyon, historic Laurel Canyon, the home of the folk rock movement of the late 1960s. And that was just magical. And after that, we went to the beach, Manhattan Beach, and we stayed down there for about a week. And I finished that album there, doing the same sort of thing, remote mixing setup. And yeah, it was amazing. Right by the water, making music, getting creative. And then obviously it was cool to get back here and start mixing inside. But yeah, it's something I'm really looking to put together is to like make out of wood, build sort of a wardrobe that opens up and has wheels. And this thing will live in my garage, but I'll be able to wheel the wardrobe out and it'll have like a pair of NS10s, just like a cheap little rig, like a crappy converter, interface, whatever it'll be. And I'll just bring my laptop, hook it up to those, and I can wheel this thing out into my backyard, you know, by the palm trees in Southern California, and just mix outside for a bit in the mornings when it's nice and it's cool. And, you know, plug one power cable in and I'm good to go and we can start mixing outside. And that's something I'm very, very excited to do because you can avoid all the reflections and like garbage that happens in rooms too.
Oh, yeah.
So that's going to be fun.
Yeah. You drag your gear out there and then have to worry about the humidity where the mix is going to recall. I wanted to touch on the fact that did you just say you were remote controlling your studio computer from your laptop while you were in Laurel Canyon?
Yeah, I was.
So that's genius. So did you have, were you using gear? Was it patched in and like ready to go and you were just hardware inserts? Or were you just in the box at that point?
I could have. I definitely could have. But I was all in the box on that project.
Okay.
And I've been kind of totally in the box lately and loving it personally.
It's kind of the way to go.
It's kind of the way to go, especially with like as soon as Bounce Butler came out, right when we had our baby, and it was just like, okay, this is easy. You know, I used to spend days in here bouncing mixes and stemming out projects. Like I always say, like, man, it takes an hour to mix a song. You know, it might take another hour or two to do some notes, but like it used to take days to stem out that mix or stem an album. Like,
stem an album,
printing
torture.
This stuff. Torture. And now I just set up Bounce Butler to do it. Like it'll be a 200 sessions save as, and you put them into Bounce Butler, and then I go to bed and I wake up with the text in the morning, your bounces are complete. Boom. And then I go check the folder. I just listen through a few seconds of each. Sometimes I'll load them into sessions to really ensure I'm not doing that a whole lot of the time because it just works now. I know it works. And I send it back. It's done. Dude, it's like by using systems of efficiency like this and by avoiding real-time bounce and analog gear, I think that you're able to really up your hourly rate, not by raising your rates with the clients, but you're able to charge the same or even less. Like this allows me to take indie projects that before just wouldn't have paid the bills because of the hourly. It just wouldn't have been worth the time. Not like it's not worth my time, but like I literally wouldn't be able to fit it into my day. But now with these tools, like, yes, I can do so many more projects. I can put my name on and my stamp on so many more pieces of music and get my name out there, and I can bring in more income too. And dude, it's a beautiful thing. Bounce Butler.
Oh, no, it's amazing. I haven't totally adapted to it yet. I'm using it for everything I'm doing, but there's a few things that I still have to do like my old OCD way. But it's such a time saver. But all of those little time saving things are huge for us because a project can take, a song could take 2 hours to mix or it could take 20 hours to mix, depending on the client, the depth, how many recalls you're doing. And when you're charging somebody on a per song or a project basis, you need to make up for those 20-hour songs with some 4-hour songs. And the only way to do that is automation, systems, and just being more efficient. And I don't know about you. I don't know. I've been preaching this a lot lately. All like the efficiency and like productivity stuff that I do, I think makes me more creative because it allows me to skip all of that nonsense and it's just so much better.
Dude, big time. Yeah. So when you sit down to the hot seat, you're ready to do what you are supposed to be doing. You can do the job of mixing and you can dig in. It's part of what's cool about cats that have assistants, you know? You can get someone who goes in and rides that vocal ahead of time and gets the mix to where it's already sounding like the reference and maybe elevate it a little bit. And then you can step in and just like, you can do the moves and you can get creative and start to think about it. The housekeeping tasks, the remedial stuff definitely gets in the way of creativity. I agree 100%.
Oh, yeah. Nothing kills me worse than like mixing for 3 hours, feeling really great and realizing that I need to turn all the breaths down in the lead vocal, and 20 minutes later I'm not interested in doing the vocal rides anymore. You're just like, okay, take a break or move on to something different for a minute. It can really
How do you do
out
breath automation, by the way?
I just hired an assistant.
Perfect.
I did. I'm trying this kid that is doing mix prep for me for the first time ever, and game changer. But I just clip gain it down like 3 to 9 dB depending on the song.
Tell me this. Is there a way to copy, because I was doing clip gain too, but when sometimes they send you a new vocal, right? They'll be like, oh, that vocal I had to and then you realize you have to redo all that. Is there a way to copy clip gain moves to a new waveform?
I don't know, but I'm pretty confident that you can convert clip gain to volume automation. Then you could copy that volume automation and then convert volume automation.
Oh, that's right.
Gain.
Yeah, you can change in the window.
Yeah, there's some copy special or something. This everybody that is like a guitar player or upcoming manager just checked out right now.
Yeah.
Our audience is now down to engineers. It's nerd talk only. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure you could do that. It might just be more than one step. So I do like to, before we end, I like to put people on the spot and ask them a question. Are you down?
I am down. Was that the question?
That is it. No, my question is I want to know what your current big goal is. It could be a Jesse mixer goal or Jesse personal goal, whatever it is, whatever you're willing to share. And what's the first step you're going to take to go towards it?
Wonderful question. Well, there are a few. The next couple of goals there's a couple and I'll put them together. Win a Grammy. That one is that's got to happen. Hopefully we get a nomination and get a W at some point soon. And I also want to get like 5 number ones and then like 10 number ones. Ultimately I need like a number one that I've mixed that's on like the top 100, right? The hot 100. And so all of these things, these are more of those like trophy accolades that I egotistically just crave. Shamelessly. So the steps towards that are really non-egotistical steps, right? So the moves that I'm going to be making to achieve those goals are, I'm going to serve my clients better. I'm going to try to reach out and get with more artists. I'm going to try to help wherever I can. I'm going to try to provide better service. I'm going to get that same day revision. I'm going to get that late night revision call. I'm just trying to be as like good of a friend as I can be to the people I work with. Because ultimately, I think you kind of can attest to this too. You become close with the people you work with, and not all the time, but most of the time it's a pretty good time working on music, and there's a good camaraderie. And whether at the time of this recording, we're in the pandemic, so we're doing a lot of Zoom mixing and talking over Zoom, just like we're doing right now. But once that's over with, I'm going to get clients back in the room. And when I have clients over, man, we have a blast. I make a delicious cup of coffee and we share coffee, and I try to get treats out. I've definitely adopted that from the studio, is getting cookies
that's that old
made,
studio
having a little veggie tray. Yeah, I mean, that works. They do it for a reason. But yeah, I'm just going to try to better serve and continue to spread my business and grow my business. Because
amazing.
Yeah, I'm super on the come up, like really, really new. Like my all music doesn't even go back before like last year, I think, right? So my discography is really low. I haven't worked on a lot of stuff that's like officially out. So we're building, baby. So my goals are to build and build and build.
Well, you know what you're going after. You know what you want. It's inspiring, I think, for people that are new to see that, if you put work in, you can achieve success, and then to still be driven after you have some success, I think is even more important. So Jesse, thank you so much, dude. This was a ton of fun, man. We'll have to do this again, or we'll have to hang outside of this. Do you want to share social or website if people want to get in touch with you, where they could find you?
Yeah, definitely. I think Instagram's the best way to just follow and shoot me a message and say what's up. I respond to all messages. I love chatting with other individuals who are into this wacky world of music like we are. It's cool. And I'm also going to be doing some Twitch streaming soon. Yeah, I'm getting into that world. I'm going to see if there's any interest for some mix breakdowns and some kind of production workshop stuff. I'm going to have like a drum kit and a bass and a guitar, like all in the room. And yeah, just sort of build 60 minutes to like build a song kind of a thing.
Oh, nice.
And
nice.
I think that'll be more educational for me than anybody else. And it'll also
awesome.
push me to get creative. And so, yeah, twitch.tv/Jesse Ray Mix and Instagram.com/ who is going to the Instagram website? No, Instagram, I'm Jesse Ray Mix.
Awesome. Well, I will put those in the show notes. Jesse, thank you so much, man. This is great. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. It's great chatting with you. And we definitely got to hang once the smoke clears post-COVID.
We will for sure.
Peace.
And that brings episode number 9 to a close. Thanks again for listening. Please like and subscribe and share and do all those things. Press those buttons. We've got a lot of great episodes coming up over the month of December, so I think you'll enjoy them. And don't forget to jump over to completeproducer.net and hang out with us there. See you next week.